Now, if you would please take a look up on the screen here. Hopefully you remember this. This was a while back. We did this program where you had to enter temperatures. This was a GUI program. It doesn't have arrays in it. But you'll notice if I put in here 80, hit enter, okay, that becomes the high temperature. If I put in 70, 80 is still the high temperature. All right. If I put in 90, that becomes the high temperature. And when I click, I don't remember if it was calculate or what, but when I click exit, it says exit the program now. We had it set up so it gave us the average. Okay. The program I just handed you out, and I just gave you a hard copy of, and many of you who are in here right now, if I say this and you take offense to what I say, then I'm sorry to begin with. But you have your Friday faces on, you know, and it's like, you know, you're working, you're typing, etc. Some of you type fast, some of you don't type fast. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm giving you a hard copy, and I'm going to go over the program, because I think then we'll be able to get it done. It'll be probably before 10 that we're done. Then because I want to give you a couple hours today to absorb this and work on stuff yourself. Plus, if you still have, some of you in here have not turned in the Chapter 3, 4, and 5 labs, so it'll give you some time to do that. All right. So I got my using system. All right, and I've got my system.console up here. That shouldn't be any thing anymore that surprises anyone. I took the comments right out of the book. I noticed that in the book they said the temperature had to be between minus 30 and 130. I use minus 20. I mean, it's no big thing. You can go in there and change yours if you want to, or you can leave it the same way. It really doesn't matter. So if a temperature is out of range, have the user re-enter it. Does that make sense? So we're going to have a check in there that says if you enter a temperature that's less than minus 20 or is greater than 130, we won't accept it. Okay? If no temperature is lower than the previous one, display the message getting warmer. So let's just put in 3 temperatures. Let's suppose I put in 70, 80, and 90. So that's what I put in for 3 temperatures. Now, if you look at number 2, if no temperature is lower than the previous one, is this lower than this? No. Is this lower than this? No. So we print out a message getting warmer. All right. On the other hand, if we had this, then it would be number 3. If every temperature is lower than the previous one, this is lower than this is lower than this. So where this one will say getting warmer, this one will say getting cooler. And if they're mixed up, so they're not in any order, it's going to say it's a mixed bag. Now you might say, well, that's kind of stupid. It's not my program, it's the one she put in the book. All right. Finally, display the temperatures in the order they were entered, then display the highest temperature, then display the lowest temperature. Does it make sense to you? Please look up on the screen. Again, pretending I'm putting in 3 temperatures myself. I'm making these up. So 56, 80, and 31. Does it make sense to you that the only way that you're going to be able to figure out the highest temperature is to go through each one? So I can set that to the highest. Is this bigger? Yes. Is this bigger? No. So that's the highest. Then I set this to the lowest. Is that smaller? No. Is that smaller? Yes. So that's the lowest. And then I'll add the 3 up, divide by 3, and I know that my average is like 55.6. That's the math that we have to do in here. But unlike the last program, which just sorted things in ascending or descending order, this one is keeping track of statistics. In particular, a maximum, a minimum, and an average. And I hope that makes sense to you. So, taking it from the top, this one, Mr. Groves, just so you know, this one does have the is numeric in it. All right, it's about the same size as the last program. Last program, I think, typing it out was like 165 lines. This one's like 170. But this one has more comments than the other one does. All right, so you can see the global constants up at the top. I'm not going to read them to you. You can see all of them. Again, If you say, well, in the book it said minus 30, then just change it right here from minus 20 to minus 30. That's all. I also took those, what they told you to print out, getting warmer, getting cooler, and it's a mixed bag. I just made them strings and made them constant strings. Didn't have to do that. Program doesn't run any better because I added lines 37, 38, and 39. It's just another way of doing it. That's all. All right. Then I've got one global variable, and that's my temperature array that's going to hold 5 temperatures. My hope is, if you would all please look up on the screen here, and you look at that line that's in blue, you understand how that is an array declaration. And that's saying that the name of the array is Temp's array. It's going to hold integer values, and it will hold 5 of them. Meaning the first one will be Temp's array with the 0 in brackets, the second one Temp's array 1 in the brackets, etc. All right? And here's main. I ran this so you can run the program over and over again. It's not a GUI program. All right? So I've got a variable that I called again. It's a Boolean variable. I set it to true. I assume you want to run the program again when you start. Then I've got another one called warm flag and another one called cool flag. You'll see those later. All right? Then another one, what I want to be able to do here, and I want you to understand this. I'm going to go over it in a minute. But at the bottom of the program, once you run it, it comes back and it says, do you want to run the program again? Do you want to run program again? Yes or no? And there's your cursor. Now that should be pretty obvious to somebody who's running the program. I'm looking for a Y or an N. That should be obvious. But you're going to have people who aren't going to enter anything. You're going to have people who are going to enter yes instead of a Y. People who are going to enter N-O for no. So what we're going to do here is, let's say you do this. Let's say you type in yes in lowercase. We're going to convert that to uppercase and then just grab the first letter and see whether or not it's a Y. That's what this is going to do at the end of main. Down here. That's exactly what this is doing. All right? So, what are we doing? We're running the program. As long as we want to keep running, we clear the console and then we call input temperatures. Guess what? That's exactly the same thing as we did before, in that when we input the temperatures, notice what we have. All right? We tell you to input a temperature. Then we check to make sure it's numeric. If it passed, meaning it is numeric, we convert it. Okay? And then, if they couldn't put it within range, we give them a message. You'll see this because I'll run it in just a minute. After we input the temperature, then we check to see. So we've got in 5 temperatures now. We check to see if they went up in temperature degrees every day, like I showed you with the 70, 80, 90. That's what this is. And what does that do? Not a big function. It says if the next one is greater than the previous one and you keep going, okay, you'll end up returning true, meaning the temperature went up every day. Otherwise, you'll return false. So when I get back from this routine called warm check, it returns a bool, which means it's going to return true or it's going to return false. And then we take that value, that true or that false, and we stuff it in right here in what we call warm flag. Then we do the same kinds of checks, but we check to see if the temperature went down every day. That's the cool check. It's just like the warm check, except instead of saying greater, we said less than. All right, but they're the same routine, basically. All right. So if you look on the screen here, please, I've got another thing here that says determine what to write. One of 3 things happened. I put in 5 temperatures. Either those 5 temperatures went up every single day, and if that's the case, I want to write getting warmer. Or those 5 temperatures went down every day, and I want to write getting cooler. Or they were just all mixed up. And then I want to write it's a mixed bag. If you look on the screen, does what I'm putting up there make sense? So I input 5 temperatures, then I have to check. Is this one greater than this one? Okay, then I keep going. Is this one greater than this one? I keep going. Is this one greater than this one? I keep going. Is this one greater than this one? Yes. So I want to write getting warmer because the numbers are going, they're getting bigger every time. Then I do this, and this thing, getting warmer, that's going to be written if warm flag is true. Then I do the same kind of thing, and this is going to be written if cool flag is true. And then finally, if warm flag isn't true and if cool flag isn't true, they're not in any order. All right? So that determine what to write simply becomes, okay? Says if they got warmer every day, write out getting warmer. If they got cooler every day, write out getting cooler. Otherwise, write out mixed bag. So I'm going to use those numbers that are up on the screen there, and I'm going to run this to just show you it. All right? So it comes through here. Enter temperature 1. And I'm going to put in the same thing. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. You can see when you look on the screen, the temperatures are increasing every day. It doesn't matter how much they're increasing by, but they're increasing. So, getting warmer. That worked. All right. Run it again. Yes. Then I'm going to try it again, but I'm going to do it the other way. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. Now it should say getting cooler, and it does because they've gotten cooler every day. Then finally, I want to run the program one last time and put in 50, 30, 40, 10, and 20. Now they're not in any order, so it should say it's a mixed bag. Does what you're being asked to do here make sense? All right. Between this program, the program I showed you before, that GUI one with the temperatures, and the one we went over today, if you understand those 3 programs, you should be able to ace the test next week. Because they're kind of a combination of those 3 programs. So if it helps, have those 3 programs up, or hard copies, or whatever. And also, this is really the last thing I want to say. I mean, just like I said, this isn't taking long. We're only 15 minutes in. But I just want you to understand that when I'm going through these, this is just the way I look at the problem and I solve the problem. By no means am I ever saying, hey, what I do is the best way of doing it, because I'm sure it's not. And it's definitely not the only way of doing it. Does that make sense to everyone? All right? Because what being a programmer is about is being able to look at a problem, break it down, and write it in your own way. Now, no one has told me this, but I remember last semester I had one of the students come up to me and say, you know, I really like the first class. I like it when we wrote websites, but I don't really like programming. I want to be a web person, but I don't want to program. Do you really think if you're going to be a web developer, you're not going to program? Okay, because you are. How much you do will depend on the type of websites you write. Okay, and there are tons of jobs out there still waiting for people. The biggest slam you've got against you, I've got one of my students who graduated in December. He's having a hard time right now getting interviews because some of these places are again going back to, no, you need a 4-year degree. All right. I had one student who graduated last May. He heard that so many times, he went back and now he's getting a 4-year degree. Right? Every place is different. I had students who literally had jobs waiting for them once they graduated as well. It just depends on the student, how you interview, etc. Right? But again, the point is, what I want you to understand is, this is just how I'm doing it. And if you disagree with the way I'm doing it, you ever want to write your own, I don't care. You're not hurting my feelings any. All right? When I have a student who, I don't know if you remember this. I've said this before, hopefully not to you guys. But if you remember, I think it was the Rocky movies. I think it was Rocky 3, but I don't remember. But it's the one where Apollo Creed came back and he was teaching Rocky how to fight like him. All right. Then at the end, what he wanted to do was he wanted to fight Rocky, and it was just those two. And Rocky was moving around, and he said, and Apollo said to him, "You look pretty good." And he said, "Yeah, you taught me everything you know." And he goes, "No, I didn't. I don't have that philosophy. I want to teach you everything I do know. And I want you to be better than me. I'm not competing with any of you for jobs. I'm not. And if you get out of here and James is a better programmer than me, I'm happy. I'm not at all upset. And the only way that's going to happen is if you take these problems and start putting your own spin on them and looking at them. All right? So when you're writing your programs, I'm not taking off if you don't put any documentation in there. I'm not. But remember, if you're taking those things and you're going to end up putting them on your portfolio, a prospective employer might look at them and say, Luke, guy writes good code. He doesn't seem like he knows how to put any documentation in. That's not really the way you want to be remembered. You also don't want it the other way, where you've got a comment every other line, where they say, what is this guy? All he does is document. There's got to be a fine line that, but they're going to look at your algorithms. They're going to look at the way you do things. All right? So again, Monday of next week, the plan is it will be lab the entire period. I will give you back your tests. I think everyone has taken it. I'll have to double check, but I believe everyone has. All right, and as long as everyone has, I'll give it back to you. Okay? Tuesday, we will, at the beginning of class, we will take the written test for Chapter 6, the one we're on now. All right? And the rest of the period will be lab. Wednesday, you will have your hands-on test, number 3, for just Chapter 6. I'll see how people did when I grade your last test this weekend. And if we have to, we'll go over that test, and we'll go over your next test. I don't care. All right? Like I said, Chapter 7 and 8, we're going to be able to breeze through pretty quick, because it's on how to take, and instead of writing everything in main, it's how to take it and break it up into methods. You already know how to do that. Especially Chapter 7 won't be hard for you at all. You should be able to go through that fairly quickly. Chapter 8 is a little bit more complex, but not much. Then we go into 9 and 10. Yeah, John, like I told you yesterday, yeah, this will be the hardest thing you've done in the class then. All right? But 11 through 14 won't be bad. All right? And we're going to be done with that, and ideally, we're going to be done with that sometime around when we break. When the break is, March 11th. Somewhere around then. Might be a week before, probably not. Might be a week after, could be. Then we're going to do a project basically as a class where we're going to bring databases into this. So you see, I will teach you some database verbiage and how to use it, etc., and we will work with that. All right? And I think that's going to help you a lot as we go on. Questions on anything? Yes. No, but I will tell you, again, I think I mentioned this to you before, but what was that? The thing that I sent you yesterday, which of course I remove here, this. I would say for fall, if you go, I'd really like to kind of get going on stuff. I'd like to have a leg up, etc. I would, and I'll bring this up before we break, but I would go over to here, the ASP.NET MVC tutorial. This is much better than what I used for people last year. I didn't know this existed. But I gave people, we went through a bunch of examples as a class, which were okay. But they were Microsoft, which already meant they weren't that great. All right, I think this looks like it's really set up well. So I'll have some of that stuff, just the same kind of way of, when it's the end of this year, you go, is there anything you can give us? Yeah, I'll give you some resources. But see, everybody's different. There's a lot of people who tell me, I don't even open up a book during the summer break. And if that's you, then you don't open up a book. I'll show you what the books are. All right, I'll be able to do that, okay, and tell you how the class will be taught. The good news is when you take the classes next year, we don't have chapter written tests. So for those of you who hate written tests, there'll still be some, but they won't be at all like that. In fact, if I have my way, what I'm going to give you the test reviews, type of thing, and that will be the test. And what we've done in the past is for the second year, when you have written tests, we let you use resources. A lot of people, if we have 8 written tests, get 8 100s. All right, because you get graded a lot more on the programs you write. All right. Any other questions? All right. Rest of the period then is yours.